Welcome to the Inside the Walking Dead channel. In today's episode, we're diving into some truly heartbreaking facts about The Walking Dead. Moments and details that will tug at your heartstrings and make you see the show in a whole new light. So, without further ado, let's jump straight into the video. Number 1. Rosita will never be able to see Coco grow up. Rosita Espinosa was a warrior, a protector, and above all, a loving mother. Throughout her time on The Walking Dead, we watched Rosita grow from a hardened survivor into someone who found meaning in love and family. Her daughter Socorro, affectionately called Coco, gave Rosita something to fight for in an unforgiving world. But Rosita's tragic death in the series finale broke hearts across the fandom. After being bitten during the group's final battle, Rosita knew her time was limited. Despite her strength and resolve, she couldn't escape the inevitable. Her final moments with Coco were among the most emotional in the series, as she gently held her baby, knowing she wouldn't be there to watch her grow up. What makes this so painful is the finality of it all. Coco will grow up never knowing her mother, never hearing her laugh, feeling her protection, or learning from her wisdom. Rosita fought so hard to give Coco a future, but she won't get to see the little girl take her first steps, say her first words, or grow into the strong woman Rosita believed she could become. Rosita's death serves as a sobering reminder of how unforgiving the apocalypse can be. For all the strength Rosita displayed, she was still human, and her loss left a void that no one can ever fill. Coco's future may be bright, but it will forever be shadowed by the absence of her mother. Number 2. Judith, Coco Espinosa, and Hershel never got to experience the real world. For Judith Grimes, Rosita's daughter Coco, and Maggie's son Hershel, the apocalypse is the only world they've ever known. Unlike the older survivors who have memories of a time before the walkers, when society functioned, families gathered, and life was full of simple joys, these children were born into a world defined by chaos, loss, and constant danger. Judith, who was born during one of the group's darkest moments, has grown up far too quickly, carrying the weight of her father Rick's legacy on her young shoulders. Similarly, Coco was born into struggle, never knowing peace or the warmth of a world where she could play freely without the fear of walkers. And then there's Hershel Ree, named after his grandfather, who never got to see the idyllic farm or understand the hope it once symbolized. What makes this so heartbreaking is the innocence that has been stolen from them. Judith, Coco, and Hershel will never know what it feels like to go to school, enjoy carefree days with friends, or dream about a future full of possibilities. Instead, they have been shaped by a harsh reality where survival comes first, and childhood is a luxury no one can afford. Their experiences remind us of how much was lost when the world fell apart. Not just lives, but the very essence of what makes life beautiful. For these children, the apocalypse isn't something they adapted to. It's all they've ever known. That quiet tragedy is a powerful reminder of what's at stake as the survivors fight to build a better future. Number 3. Tara and Rosita died thinking Rick was dead. Rick Grimes's death at the bridge was one of the most impactful moments in The Walking Dead. While we as viewers knew Rick survived, the characters did not. For Tara Chambler and Rosita Espinosa, Rick's apparent death was another devastating loss in a world full of heartbreak. Both women fought hard to build a better future. Tara with her unwavering optimism and dedication to her friends, and Rosita with her strength and resilience, carried on believing Rick was gone forever. And when they met their tragic ends, Tara at the hands of Alpha and Rosita from a walker bite, they died without knowing the truth. Rick was alive, out there somewhere, fighting to survive. It's devastating to think that they carried that grief to their final moments. Rick was the leader, the symbol of hope, and the person who inspired them to keep going. Believing he was dead must have weighed heavily on them both. Their sacrifices were made in his memory, but they never got the closure of knowing he survived. This fact highlights one of the cruel realities of The Walking Dead. Even in death, the truth remains hidden. For Tara and Rosita, the world ended without ever knowing the full story, and their final moments are tinged with a sadness that lingers long after they're gone. Number 4. Carol lost. All the children she loved. Carol Pelletier's journey in The Walking Dead is one of the most heartbreaking in the entire series. Once a quiet, abused woman, Carol transformed into one of the group's most formidable survivors. But beneath her tough exterior lies a lifetime of pain, most of it tied to the children she's loved and lost. It started with her daughter, Sophia, whose disappearance and tragic death in Season 2 shattered Carol's world. Later, Lizzie and Mika came into her life, two sisters who Carol cared for like her own. But their story ended in unimaginable tragedy, with Carol having to make the heartbreaking decision to kill Lizzie after she murdered Mika. And then there was Henry, Carol's adoptive son, who became her second chance at motherhood. Henry's brutal death at the hands of Alpha left Carol broken once again. Losing one child is a pain no parent should have to endure, but Carol has faced it over and over again. Each loss has left scars on her heart, forcing her to close herself off to love in order to survive. Yet, despite her grief, Carol continues to fight, perhaps because she knows she has to for the memory of the children she's lost. Carol's story is a tragic reminder of how cruel the apocalypse can be. Her strength is undeniable, but it comes at a devastating cost. She's lost every child she's ever loved, and the weight of that loss is something she'll carry forever. Number 5. Everyone who wore the hat got shot. The sheriff's hat, passed down from Rick to Carl and eventually to Judith, is more than just a piece of clothing. It's a symbol of leadership, hope, and resilience. But there's a tragic pattern tied to this iconic hat. Everyone who wore it ended up getting shot. Rick wore the hat during the early days of the apocalypse, leading his group through some of their darkest times. Carl inherited it, wearing it as a symbol of his father's legacy. But Carl was shot multiple times throughout the series, and his eventual death remains one of the show's most emotional moments. Later, Beth Green briefly wore the hat in a moment of levity, symbolizing her growing strength. Tragically, Beth was shot and killed not long after in one of the series' most shocking deaths. The pattern surrounding the hat is almost like a curse, a reminder that leadership and strength come with a heavy price. It's fitting, then, that Judith eventually inherits the hat. She wears it proudly, carrying the weight of her father's and brother's legacies. But given the hat's history, fans can't help but worry about what it might mean for Judith's future. The sheriff's hat may symbolize hope, but its history is undeniably tragic. For everyone who wore it, the cost of survival was higher than anyone could have imagined.